What's going on, guys? This is going to be a little bit of an informal video, but I also just wanted to talk about some of the things that I have learned in just about 2 years working in the childcare field. So I started working at a YMCA during COVID, and I kind of jokingly say that during that time I was a math teacher, an English teacher, a gym teacher, a nurse, a study hall supervisor, a lunchroom teacher, a field trip chaperone. I wore a lot of hats during about 6 or so months that I was at the Y. And the first thing that I learned and really picked up on was know your kids. And I know that sounds like really obvious, but it's so important because being aware of who's around you and what kids take on to certain aspects of the way that you teach and what kids do not is so important, because you may have a kid that you just connect really well with and everything clicks and you guys end up really getting on well, and for no fault of this other child's being, if you will, you're going to have a kid at the opposite end of that you just don't get along with. Maybe they frustrate you, maybe you just don't have a way to get in with them to connect, and you know what? That happens, and trying to learn to be okay with that is not easy. I had some kids that really pushed me at the Y, and I had to realize that, maybe someone else on our staff is able to connect with this kid, and if that's the case, let them have that connection with that kid, and kind of be willing to share those things with the team that you're working on, and accept that you can't fix every kid that you're working on, learning with. You're not going to get along with every child you're working with, but knowing the kids around you and trying to apply that to yourself, which kind of leads me to my second point, is really important. And my second point is know yourself. It took me most of that first 6 months to really discover how I work with kids, because when I started, I wanted to be the cool camp counselor, like everybody likes, and I remember when I went to summer camp, there was, the counselors would bring candy and sing songs with us, and, be really cool and let us do whatever we want and not really care about the rules, and it's amazing how fast that erodes and just becomes pure chaos. And so learning what my teaching style is, which is pretty even keel. Personally, I like to be on the floor with the kids. I like to play with them. I like to be at their literal level, because I also am adept at getting into that headspace. For example, I work in a preschool right now, and I'll get to some things about age groups and things, but I'm at a preschool, and I like to just get on the floor and start building with some blocks. And I was doing that last week, and a little girl had a pirate ship on the carpet. We got a blue carpet, and so she was putting the pirate ship on the blue for the water, and so I grabbed a second pirate ship. I said, well, I'm going to be this one, and I'm going to sail the ocean. And she looked at me and just very seriously said, well, how are we going to do that if we don't have a dock? And I said, you know what, you're absolutely right. Let's build a dock. What should we build a dock with? She said, blocks. And so I got out some blocks, and I started to build a dock, and she started to build a city, and all of a sudden we had this crazy little universe with bridges and a ramp and cars and a city and a pizza restaurant and just all this stuff that just developed from me being at that level with her and starting. And then other kids came over, of course, because they saw that we were building something and they wanted in. So just knowing your kids and knowing yourself and when you put those two together, you really have the ability to make a connection with kids. But I need to emphasize for my next point that that is not the end of the road. And my next point is kind of hard to explain, but I'm going to do the best I can. And the way that I want to phrase this is like this. You build the framework, let the child build the house. Now, I've been working at the childcare center I'm at right now for about 9 months. I also worked there for about 6 months or so last year. So I've been around this particular center for a while. I know my lead teacher I work with pretty well, and I know how our system functions. But when you get kids, and for example, I spend some time with them outside on the playground in the mornings. And I like to bring a Bluetooth speaker. I've got some music that I put on for them. And I like to push them on the swings and play the games that they play outside. But the thing that I've realized is my state of being on the playground is that I walk around with the kids. And sometimes they'll say, hey, Chris, do you want some ice cream from our ice cream shop? And I'll kind of wander over and, yeah, I'd love some ice cream. What kinds do you have? And kind of make them, spur the imagination in that way and get them thinking. And then I'll say, well, okay, I'll come get some in a little bit. I have to go do this thing, and I'll go maybe push them on a swing, and I'll give them my order for a vanilla cone with sprinkles or whatever it is. And let the kids initiate these kinds of interactions, because you are never going to be able to force your wisdom or your connection or your personality onto a child. And something that I've seen at my center too is some staff will ask questions of the children that are very gossip oriented of, I heard you're moving house, or how's your mom, or how's your dad, or you got a new cat. And in some ways those things might be things the kids are really excited about, but if they're not, you asking those questions is just going to kind of seem like a silly grown-up question to them, and they may not really understand what you're doing or why, and it doesn't allow for them to build the connection themselves, where I walk around the playground when I'm not engaged in a game or pushing kids on the swings, and sometimes kids will just say, hey, Chris, let's play Duck, Duck, Goose, or we want to hear, the Animal Freeze Dance song, and so I'll go on my phone and I'll pull it up on my speaker for them to listen to, and they dance. And you build the framework, let the child build the house. Make yourself available, and maybe use some questions to kickstart things. I'm happy to talk more about play in another video, because that's something that I like a lot, and I think is one of my strong suits in the field. But you need to provide for that child a place, like a springboard, a place to start. Some kids are going to pick up on that, and they're going to run with it, and they're going to connect to you because of that, and some aren't. And the kids that don't aren't bad kids. And that's another point that I wanted to get into, is that not all kids who you don't connect with are bad kids. In fact, I would say most of them are not inherently bad kids. They're kids who are struggling, whether that is a behavioral issue that you're encountering a lot, or maybe again, just a temperament thing. You're not getting along with certain kids because of their temperament and yours not clicking. And you know what? It is okay for that to happen. What's not okay is for you to elevate that and begin to take that out on that child. And so there's kids in my class who I just haven't really connected with, and the best analogy I can give there is kind of a live and let live. You know what? We're not going to get along. I'm not going to fight you over everything. And if we need to do something in the classroom, I'm going to ask you to do that in the same way that I would to anybody else. But I'm not going to force the issue and try to, ask a bunch of questions and sit with you all the time. And, if that reception just isn't there, and it doesn't mean never try, it just means don't beat yourself up over it and never take that out on the child themselves. And I guess my last big point that I wanted to make is, when you put all of this together, when you know your child, when you know yourself, when you allow for connections to happen organically, and you function in the way that is comfortable for you, the kids know that. The kids know that you are comfortable, that you're happy, that you're enjoying spending time with them, and they pick up on those things. And my last point is, treat every kid the same, whether you connect with them or not, whether you get along with them well or not, whether they frustrate you or not. It's important that they know that you're there to help, and that you're there to do what you're doing, but also that you have a classroom. It's a big family, and the important thing in a family is to be consistent and be stable. You don't know what kids are bringing in, so do everything you can to do all of those things, and allow for those connections to happen, and they will happen, I promise. It might not be right away, and it might not be with every child, but that's how this goes. But yeah, that is some of the things that I wanted to talk about in reference to childcare and my experience. If you have any specific questions or anything else you really want me to talk about specifically, I'm happy to talk about more in other videos, so feel free to leave a comment. We can have a conversation down there. I know this video has been a little bit out of the left field, and you know what? That is my channel in a nutshell. If you haven't hung out with me before, hello. But we don't know when it's coming. I don't know, you don't know, nobody knows. It just kind of, everything happens. We do a little bit of gaming, we do a little bit of talking about life, a little bit of music here and there, and I hope that you will hang around for more. So if you like what you're seeing, and you want to subscribe, I would really appreciate it. I usually don't ask for those types of things, but as this is something kind of new for me, I figured it's worth a shot. But thank you so much for checking this out. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, your weekend, whatever it is, and we'll see you soon. All right, peace.